The observation deck hummed with the nervous energy of 12 xenobiologists who were about to make what they believed would be galactic history. Commander Vrel adjusted his translator implant for the third time in as many minutes, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he stared at the viewing screen. Below them, on the surface of Station Omega-7, a single human child sat cross-legged in the testing chamber, looking about as concerned as a rock. "Initiate Phase 1, Vrel announced, his voice crackling with what he hoped sounded like authority rather than the creeping dread that had been his constant companion since this assignment began. Dr. Quilnix, a Brevari scientist whose species had conquered fear itself through genetic modification 3 centuries ago, leaned forward with her scanning device. Subject appears calm. Heart rate is remarkably stable. This contradicts our initial projections. "They're always calm at first," muttered Technician Broll from his station, manipulating holographic controls with his tentacles. "Wait until they see what we've prepared." The human child, a boy of approximately 9 solar cycles who'd introduced himself as Tommy Rexford, seemed more interested in examining his fingernails than acknowledging the sophisticated fear response equipment surrounding him. His brown hair stuck up at odd angles, and his shirt displayed some sort of Earth predator with the words Jurassic Squad beneath it. Vrel had researched this Jurassic period. The fact that humans venerated their planet's most terrifying extinct creatures as entertainment for their young should have been his first warning sign. "Beginning sensory manipulation sequence," announced Dr. Quilnix, her voice steady despite the tremor in her upper manipulator appendages. The lights in the chamber dimmed, shadows lengthened, stretching across the walls like grasping fingers. The temperature dropped exactly 7.3 degrees, calculated to trigger the mammalian fear response. Subsonic frequencies, carefully calibrated to inspire existential dread in 94% of known sentient species, thrummed through the air. Tommy yawned. "Fascinating," whispered Dr. Quilnix, though her tone suggested she found it anything but increasing intensity. The shadows began to move now, coalescing into shapes that the Galactic Psychological Warfare Division had spent decades perfecting. Creatures from nightmare, beings of pure darkness, entities that suggested teeth and hunger and things that lurked in spaces between spaces. These weren't mere holograms, they were psycho-reactive projections that literally read the subject's deepest fears and manifested them into quasi-physical form. Tommy tilted his head, watching the shadows dance. "Oh, cool, like a screensaver." Commander Vrel's rightmost eye twitched. "Explain screensaver." "You know," Tommy said, apparently aware they could hear him despite the one-way audio setup. "Those things that show up on computers when you're not using them. My dad's has flying toasters. This is way better though." Broll's tentacles knotted themselves into what Vrel recognized as the Brevari equivalent of absolute confusion. "He's comparing our Apex fear constructs to decorative flying bread heating devices. Perhaps the translation matrix is malfunctioning," suggested Dr. Quilnix, though she didn't sound convinced. "Proceed to Phase 2, Vrel ordered, fighting the urge to end this experiment and recommend humanity be classified as a Level 9 reality-breaking anomaly. The chamber floor opened. From below rose a containment field housing a Skraeth, one of the galaxy's most notoriously vicious predators. The creature stood 8 feet tall when fully extended, possessed 6 arms ending in claws that could shred titanium, and had a face that looked like evolution had specifically designed it to cause psychological trauma. Its mouth contained 3 rows of rotating teeth, and it excreted a pheromone that triggered panic responses in every tested species. Every tested species except, apparently, 9-year-old humans named Tommy. The boy leaned forward with interest. "Whoa, is that thing real?" The Skraeth, sensing prey, lunged against its containment field with a roar that had literally caused a Gevron diplomat to expire from fright during the last demonstration. Tommy didn't flinch. Instead, he pressed his face closer to the transparent barrier separating him from the creature, his eyes wide not with fear but with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for. Vrel checked his cultural database, birthday celebrations, and frozen dairy desserts. "Look at those teeth. Are they like shark teeth? Do they grow back?" What does it eat? Can it see in the dark? Does it have a good sense of smell? The questions tumbled out rapid fire while the Skraeth, looking increasingly confused, continued its aggressive display. After a full minute of being thoroughly ignored in favor of Tommy's enthusiastic questions, the predator actually stopped mid-roar and sat down, its posture suggesting something between bewilderment and offense. Did that child just make a Skraeth question its life choices? Broll's translator rendered his tone as something between horror and unwilling admiration. Dr. Quilnix was frantically taking notes. The pheromone exposure should have rendered him catatonic. His neural patterns show excitement, curiosity, wonder, but zero fear response. This is unprecedented. Maybe he's broken, suggested Broll hopefully. Or maybe, Vrel said slowly, reviewing everything in their extensive files on humanity, we severely underestimated this species. Again. That word, again, carried the weight of 300 years of failed contact protocols, diplomatic incidents, and what the Galactic Council euphemistically called humanity-related complications. There was the time humans had been introduced to the Centauri Labyrinth, a maze designed to take decades to solve, and they'd mapped the entire thing in 6 hours using something called the right-hand rule and treating it like a game. There was the incident where humans had encountered the plague ships of Morgoth, vessels of certain death that no species dared approach, and they'd not only approached but also salvaged them, turned them into museums, and were charging admission. And who could forget the disaster when the Zorganian Empire had attempted to invade Earth with their fearsome war spheres, only to have humans name them sky walnuts, create comedic entertainment programs mocking them, and eventually make them into a beloved franchise of children's toys? Initiating Phase 3, Dr. Quilnix announced, though Vrel detected reluctance in her voice. Psychological terror protocol. This time, they weren't using physical threats. Instead, the chamber filled with a carefully crafted illusion that tapped into deep evolutionary fears. The walls seemed to dissolve, leaving Tommy floating in an endless void. No up, no down, no reference points, just infinite emptiness. Below him, if below meant anything anymore, yawned an abyss that suggested falling forever, never landing, eternal descent into nothing. Most species lasted approximately 45 seconds before begging for it to stop. Tommy spread his arms like he was pretending to fly. This is like that dream where you're falling but you never hit the ground. Except I'm awake. Can you make me spin? Make him spin? Repeated Broll in disbelief. He's treating tactical psychological warfare as recreational activity, Dr. Quilnix said, her voice flat with shock. This shouldn't be possible. The void sequence triggers existential crisis in 99.8% of tested subjects. Vrel rubbed his primary thinking ridge, feeling a headache forming. In his 3 decades of xenopsychology research, he'd never encountered anything like this. End Phase 3. Move to Phase 4. Commander, Dr. Quilnix protested. Phase 4 hasn't been fully tested. The ethical committee specifically recommended. The ethical committee, Vrel interrupted, didn't anticipate a test subject who treats horror scenarios like theme park attractions. Proceed. Phase 4 involved something far simpler and, theoretically, far more effective than monsters or voids. It created the illusion of isolation, of being completely and utterly alone. Not physically alone, like in the void, but truly, cosmically alone. The last being in existence. Every friend gone, every loved one vanished, nothing but silence and emptiness stretching forever. They'd used this once, on a captured enemy agent. The simulation lasted 2 minutes before she broke completely. Tommy sat in the sudden silence of the empty chamber, the walls now showing not darkness but simply nothing. Gray, featureless, empty. He pulled his knees up to his chest and was quiet for a moment. Just a moment. Vrel felt a surge of something uncomfortably like guilt. Had they finally found the limit? Had they actually hurt this child? Then Tommy spoke, his voice clear and unbothered. You know, this reminds me of when we went camping and I wandered off. Got lost for like 3 hours. But then I found this cool creek, and there were frogs. Dad was super worried, but I was fine. Being alone isn't scary if you're good at entertaining yourself. Want to hear me recite the periodic table? Hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium. Turn it off, Vrel said quietly. Commander? I said turn it off. The chamber returned to normal lighting. Tommy stood up, brushing off his pants. Is the test over? That was fun. Are we doing more? My mom's supposed to pick me up at 4. Brol was staring at his instruments like they'd personally betrayed him. His stress hormones actually decreased during Phase 4. He found it relaxing. Before Vrel could respond, every alarm in the observation deck began screaming at once. Red warning lights flooded the space, and the main display showed something that made Vrel's blood equivalent run cold. Breach in Containment Sector 7. Brol announced, his tentacles flying across controls. The Skraeth's enclosure. How did? I had that sealed with triple redundancy protocols. Where's the Skraeth now? Vrel demanded. The answer appeared on screen, and it was worse than he'd imagined. The creature was moving through the station corridors with terrifying speed, heading directly toward, of course, the testing chamber where one small human child stood completely unaware of the approaching apex predator. Get him out, Vrel shouted. Emergency extraction. Now. Negative, Brol reported, his voice tight with panic. The emergency protocols are locked. Something's jamming the system. On screen, they watched in horror as the Skraeth burst through the chamber doors with a sound like thunder. Tommy spun around, eyes going wide. This was it, Vrel thought. This was where the fearless human child finally learned what terror meant. This was where Tommy's face split into the biggest smile Vrel had seen yet. Oh, awesome. You let him out. The Skraeth roared, a sound that shook the observation deck even through the reinforced walls. It charged forward, claws extended, mouth open to reveal those 3 rows of rotating teeth. And then something impossible happened. Another creature entered the chamber. It was small, perhaps a quarter of the Skraeth's size, with black and white fur and a waddling gait that should have been comical. Except nothing about the energy this creature radiated was funny. It moved between Tommy and the Skraeth with casual confidence, looked up at the 8-foot terror with eyes that suggested it had fought worse things before breakfast, and made a sound. Not a roar, not a growl. Something between a grunt and a cough that somehow conveyed absolute fearlessness and a willingness to engage in ultra-violence at a moment's notice. What? Vrel said very slowly. Is that? Dr. Quilnix was frantically scanning. According to the database, it's called a honey badger, Earth species, Mellivora capensis, native to Africa, Middle East, and Indian subcontinent, carnivorous, approximately 12 kilograms. Known for, oh no, known for what? Known for being, and I'm quoting directly from the Earth Animal Behavioral Database here, one of the most fearless animals in the world, with a reputation for taking on animals much larger than itself, including lions, leopards, and hyenas. The honey badger and the Skraeth stared at each other. The Skraeth, which had terrorized 3 sectors of space and whose very name made experienced soldiers nervous, actually took a step backward. The honey badger's posture seemed to say, well, are we doing this or what? Tommy knelt down next to the honey badger, completely unconcerned about the predator that could literally rip him apart. Hey buddy, did you escape too? Your enclosure must be close to his. This is so cool. The honey badger glanced at Tommy, then back at the Skraeth, and made another sound. This one definitely translated as, the human's with me. You want him, you go through me. What happened next would be analyzed by xenobiologists for decades. The Skraeth, apex predator of 3 star systems, creature of nightmare and terror, looked at the honey badger, really looked at it, and in whatever passed for its brain, some deep survival instinct that had kept its species alive through millions of years of evolution did the calculation and came to a very clear conclusion. This was not a fight it wanted. The Skraeth slowly backed away, making a sound that was almost conciliatory, and then turned and fled back through the door it had entered from. The honey badger watched it go with what could only be described as disappointment, like someone had canceled plans it was actually looking forward to. Then it sat down next to Tommy, looked up at the hidden cameras with an expression that was unmistakably smug, and the creature seemed to communicate something very clear. Your turn. In the observation deck, nobody spoke. Nobody moved. 12 of the galaxy's finest scientists were trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Finally, Brohl broke the silence. Did that small Earth mammal just make a Skraeth retreat by existing at it? That's not possible, Doctor, Quilnick said, though her voice lacked conviction. The Skraeth's fear response was eliminated through evolutionary pressure. It doesn't know fear. It does now, Vrel muttered. On the screen, Tommy was petting the honey badger, which seemed content to accept the attention while maintaining an aura that suggested it could and would fight anything in the galaxy at literally any moment. The boy looked up at the cameras again, his expression hopeful. Can we do more tests? Bartholomew looks like he wants to play too. He named it, Brohl said weakly. He named the chaos creature Bartholomew. Vrel should have ended the SILD experiment right there. Any sane commander would have. But something in the way Tommy sat there, completely unafraid, next to an animal that had apparently decided humanity was worth protecting, made him curious. How far did this go? What else would fail to frighten these impossible beings from Earth? Against every instinct screaming at him to stop, Vrel made a decision he'd question for years to come. Prepare Phase 5. Doctor. Quilnick's turned to stare at him. Commander, Phase 5 is theoretical. We've never actually implemented it because the psychological damage could be permanent. And we've never had a test subject who treats terror scenarios as entertainment while being protected by an Earth animal with what I can only describe as a bad attitude and the confidence of a battle cruiser. Vrel shot back. If we're going to understand humanity, if we're going to know what we're dealing with before they become a full galactic power, we need to see their actual limits. Besides, the child seems to be enjoying himself. This was true. Tommy was now playing some sort of hand-slapping game with the honey badger, who was participating with what looked like genuine interest, though its eyes never stopped scanning the room for potential threats. Phase 5 it is, Dr. Quilnick said, though she sounded like she was agreeing to commit a crime. But for the record, I'm noting my objections in the official log. Noted and ignored, Vrel replied. Initiate sequence. The chamber began to change, but this time it wasn't about creating monsters or voids or isolation. This was something far more insidious. Phase 5 was called the Echo Protocol, and it worked by creating a time loop scenario. The subject would experience the same terrifying moment over and over, aware of the repetition but unable to escape it, watching themselves react in exactly the same way each time, trapped in a nightmare of perfect prediction and zero control. It was based on psychological warfare, so effective that the Galactic Council had banned its use in actual combat. They'd made an exception for controlled scientific study, but even then, the maximum exposure time was supposed to be 30 seconds. Vrel gave them 2 minutes. He had to know. The loop began simple. Tommy and Bartholomew were sitting together. The lights flickered. A sound echoed through the chamber. Both looked up. Then everything reset. Exactly the same. Flicker, sound, look up, reset. Again, and again, and again. Most species started screaming by the 3rd repetition. By the 30th repetition, Tommy had figured out the pattern. Oh, it's looping. Like that Earth movie about the time thing. Have you guys seen it? Guy gets stuck in the same day? Pretty funny, actually. By the 60th repetition, he'd started experimenting. Okay, what if I stand here when it resets? Oh, same thing. What if I close my eyes? Still know it's happening. What if I try to? Bartholomew, the honey badger, meanwhile, had apparently decided that time loops were boring and had curled up for a nap, though one eye remained slightly open and alert. When the 2 minutes ended and the loop finally broke, Tommy stretched and blinked. That was weird. Made me kind of dizzy. Do I get a snack break? Bartholomew probably needs water. In the observation deck, Dr. Quilnick was staring at her instruments like they'd grown additional dimensions. Impossible. His stress response should be through the ceiling. The Echo Protocol causes existential crisis in every recorded species. Every single one. And he's asking for snacks. And concerned about hydration for the murder machine, Brohl added, pointing at the screen where Tommy was indeed checking Bartholomew for signs of thirst. Vrel sank into his command chair, feeling the weight of a horrible realization settling over him. They weren't going to find humanity's fear threshold. Not today. Maybe not ever. Because these beings, these impossible, reckless, fearless beings, didn't process fear like other species. They befriended it, turned it into entertainment, protected each other from it with animals that had apparently evolved spite into a survival mechanism. End the experiment, he said quietly. Commander? I said end it. Return the child to his guardians. Return Bartholomew to his enclosure, assuming we can convince him to go. And someone send a message to the Galactic Council with the following recommendation. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Humanity should be classified as a protected development species, but not for their protection, for ours. The observation deck fell silent, except for the soft hum of equipment and, from the speakers, the sound of Tommy teaching Bartholomew what he called a high five. Somewhere in the back of his mind, Vrel wondered what would happen when humanity finally reached the stars in force. When their children grew up and joined their fleets and brought their honey badgers with them. The galaxy wasn't ready. The galaxy would never be ready. And somewhere in that testing chamber, a 9-year-old human and a 12-kilogram ball of fearless fury sat together, completely unaware that they'd just rewritten 300 years of xenopsychological theory. The Skraeth never did come out of its hiding place. Even after they'd cleared the chamber. Even after they'd offered its favorite food. It refused to emerge until they'd confirmed that both the human and the honey badger were completely off the station. Some lessons, apparently, transcended species. 3 standard galactic weeks after what would forever be known in xenopsychological circles as the Rexford Incident, Commander Vrel found himself standing before the Galactic Council's Special Committee on Human Affairs. The chamber was enormous, designed to accommodate representatives from 47 different species, each with their own atmospheric requirements, gravity preferences, and personal space bubbles. Vrel had his presentation loaded, his notes prepared, and a migraine that felt like it was trying to achieve sentience. Commander Vrel, began Chancellor Mipthar, a being whose species had mastered interstellar travel before humans had figured out fire. We've reviewed your preliminary report. We find it difficult to accept. With respect, Chancellor, I find it difficult to accept too. I was there, and I still don't quite believe it. A murmur rippled through the council chamber. Councillor Dravix, whose people had spent 2,000 years perfecting the art of tactical intimidation, leaned forward. You're telling us that a single human juvenile, not even fully developed, resisted every fear protocol we possess? Not resisted, Vrel corrected. That would imply he felt fear and overcame it. He simply didn't experience fear the way we understand it. He experienced curiosity, excitement, amusement. The honey badger, though, that creature felt something. Just not fear. More like aggressive enthusiasm. Ridiculous, snapped Ambassador Krenth, representing the Skraeth homeworld. My people's warriors have conquered 12 systems. One of our fighters retreated from a 12-kilogram Earth mammal. Vrel pulled up the footage. The council watched in absolute silence as Bartholomew stared down the Skraeth. When the apex predator turned and fled, at least 3 council members made sounds of distress. That footage has been analyzed by our best technological experts, Vrel continued. It's completely authentic. No manipulation, no editing. That's exactly what happened. Chancellor Mipthar's breathing apparatus wheezed slightly. What have we done? We invited them into the galactic community thinking they were a typical developing species. We followed standard protocol. We assumed their fear responses would be normal. To be fair, interjected Dr. Quilnix, who'd been called as an expert witness, nothing about Earth's evolutionary history suggested this would happen. Their planet is a death world, by our classifications, yes, But so are 17 other worlds that produce species with perfectly functional fear responses. Something else is happening here. Vrel nodded. We've been studying Earth's cultural database more carefully. I think I know what we missed. He pulled up a series of images. Human children reading books about monsters. Humans creating entertainment about their fears. Humans domesticating predators and turning them into companions. Humans seeking out experiences that triggered their fear responses and calling it fun. They don't eliminate fear, Vrel explained. They weaponize it against itself. They turn it into stories, games, challenges. They expose their young to controlled versions of fear to build resistance. It's like they're constantly training themselves to not be afraid by being afraid on purpose. That's insane, said Counselor Dravix flatly. That's humanity, Vrel replied. Ambassador Krenth wasn't finished. Fine, one child. What about adults? Surely their military personnel would respond appropriately to our threat assessment protocols. Vrel and Dr. Quilnix exchanged glances. This was the part they'd been dreading. About that, Doctor, Quilnix began carefully. After the Rexford incident, we received authorization to test human adults, specifically, military volunteers. We used the same protocols. And? Chancellor Mipthar leaned forward. And they laughed at us. The council chamber erupted. Questions flew in 17 different languages simultaneously. Vrel waited for the chaos to settle before continuing. The first volunteer, a soldier named Marcus Liu, made it through Phase 1 in under 3 minutes. His exact words were, "This is adorable. Do you guys not have horror movies?" By Phase 4, he'd fallen asleep. We literally couldn't keep him awake during our isolation scenario. The second volunteer, Dr. Quilnix added, consulting her notes, Emma Park, Special Forces, operative, asked if we could turn up the intensity. When we explained we were already at maximum, she seemed disappointed. She did compliment our holographic technology, though, said it was pretty decent for aliens. Counselor Dravix had turned an interesting shade that Vrel's translator couldn't quite identify. You're telling me that adult human warriors treat our most sophisticated psychological warfare as… what? Exactly. Entertainment, Vrel confirmed. Training exercises. One volunteer asked if he could bring his squad back for team-building activities. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Chancellor Mipthar spoke, each word careful and measured. What happened with Phase 5? The Echo Protocol? This was it. The moment Vrel had been dreading. We tested it on 3 adult volunteers. Different backgrounds. Different psychological profiles. Standard 2-minute exposure. Results. First volunteer, Liu, said it reminded him of his morning meditation routine. Said the repetition was relaxing. Second volunteer, Park, used the time to practice breathing exercises. By the 30th loop, she'd figured out how to optimize her physical position for maximum comfort. And the third volunteer, prompted Ambassador Krenth. Vrel pulled up another video file. This is Jake Thornton, civilian. Occupation, kindergarten teacher. The council watched as the Echo Protocol initiated. Flicker, sound, reset. Flicker, sound, reset. By the 10th repetition, Thornton had started humming. By the 20th, he'd turned it into a song. By the 50th, he was doing a little dance move each time the loop reset, gradually building a complete, choreographed routine. When the protocol ended, Thornton had looked directly at the camera and said, "That was great. The repetition really helps with muscle memory. I'm going to teach this dance to my 5-year-olds. Several council members had their heads in their appendages. One was making a sound that Vrel's translator unhelpfully labeled as existential despair. There's more, Dr. Quilnix said, though her tone suggested she wished there wasn't. We noticed something interesting in the biological data. Humans do experience fear. Their bodies show all the chemical and neurological markers: elevated heart rate, adrenaline spike, heightened awareness. But somewhere between the physical response and the behavioral output, something happens. They process it differently. She brought up a neural scan comparison. Most species, when fear triggers, it activates survival responses: flee, freeze, or fight. But look at the human brain pattern. Fear triggers, yes, but then immediately another system activates. This region here controls curiosity. This one, problem solving. This one, social bonding. It's like their brains take the fear response and feed it into every other system simultaneously. They turn terror into tools. Vrel added. The fear doesn't paralyze them, because they're too busy being interested in what's scaring them, figuring out how it works, or checking if their companions are okay. Chancellor Mipthar was very quiet for a long moment. What do you recommend, Commander? Vrel had spent 3 weeks preparing for this question. Complete revision of human classification. They're not a typical developing species. They're something new. We should establish cultural exchange programs immediately, study their psychological resilience techniques, and absolutely, under no circumstances, should we ever attempt to intimidate them again. Why not? Demanded Ambassador Krenth. Because, Vrel said carefully, we're seeing signs that they interpret attempts at intimidation as either entertainment or challenges, and humans, as we're learning, love challenges. The more we try to scare them, the more interested they become. We're essentially training them to be even less afraid of us. There's also the honey badger issue, Dr. Quilnix added. The council, collectively groaned. The honey badger issue had become infamous. After the Rexford incident, someone had made the catastrophic decision to research Earth animals more thoroughly. The results had been disturbing. Humanity shared their planet with creatures that ranged from mildly concerning to physically impossible nightmare fuel. And humans, bafflingly, kept many of these creatures as pets or companions. Let me get this straight, Counselor Dravix said slowly. Humans coexist with animals that include apex predators with bite forces that can crush bone, venomous creatures that can kill them in minutes, parasites that can control their behavior, and insects that swarm in the millions. And their response is to study them, name them, write songs about them, and in some cases, keep them in their homes? Correct, confirmed Dr. Seth. Quilnix. We found records of humans keeping creatures called dogs, which are descended from pack hunters, cats, which are obligate carnivores with retractable claws. Some humans keep reptiles that could easily eat them. Others keep spiders, voluntarily, in containers, in their living spaces. Why? The question came from Chancellor Mipthar, but it echoed the sentiment of the entire council. Best we can determine, Vrel said, because they think they're cute, interesting, or fun. The council sat with that information for a moment. Somewhere in the chamber, someone was quietly crying. There's one more thing, Vrel continued, knowing this would be the final straw. We've been monitoring human internet communications. They found out about the test. Panic exploded across the council chamber. How? Demanded Chancellor Mipthar. That was classified beyond maximum security, Tommy told his friends. His friends told their parents. Someone posted about it on what humans call social media. It's now what they term viral. Dr. Quilnix pulled up the relevant communications. The council read in growing horror as humans responded to news of the fear testing with reactions ranging from cool to can I volunteer to wait, you guys don't have scary movies? That's so sad. Let me send you some recommendations. One particular post had gotten significant attention. Aliens tried to scare us and couldn't. This is the most hilariously on-brand thing for humanity ever. We literally make fun of our own extinction-level threats for entertainment. Another read, everyone talking about the kid. But can we discuss how the honey badger just sat down like, yeah, that's what I thought after the alien monster ran away? Earth animals are on another level. They're not afraid that we tested their fear responses, Vrel said. They're entertained by it. Some are offering to help us design better tests. Others want to know if they can take home the equipment as souvenirs. This is unprecedented, Chancellor Mipthar said weakly. It gets worse, Dr. Quilnix added, which earned her several looks that suggested council members were reconsidering her employment. Multiple human entertainment corporations have contacted us, requesting permission to create what they call movies or shows about the incident. They want to dramatize it. One offer included the quote, alien fear factor, but the aliens are the ones freaking out. Ambassador Skraeth stood up, which was significant given his species rarely showed such dramatic gestures. Let me summarize. Humans don't fear appropriately. Their children befriend animals that threaten our apex predators. Their adults treat psychological warfare as recreation. They've turned this entire incident into entertainment, and now they want to create fictional accounts of it for more entertainment? That's accurate, Vrel confirmed. And you want us to increase contact with these beings? I want us to avoid making them adversaries, Vrel corrected. Chancellor, council members, think about what we've learned. If humans don't experience fear the way we do, traditional deterrence won't work. Threat displays will fail. Intimidation tactics will backfire. The only logical approach is cooperation. Councillor Dravix huffed. You're suggesting we're afraid of them. I'm suggesting we should be smart about them, Vrel replied. Consider, if they're this fearless during first contact, what will they be like in a generation? 2 generations? When their children grow up hearing stories about how Grandpa Tommy made alien researchers question their career choices? When they've fully integrated into galactic society, still bringing their honey badgers and their attitude that treats danger like a hobby? The council sat in contemplative silence. Finally, Chancellor Mipthar spoke. Commander Vrel, your recommendations are accepted. We'll proceed with cultural exchange and cooperation protocols. But I want continuous monitoring of human psychological development. If we're going to share the galaxy with beings who think terror is entertainment, we need to understand them completely. Agreed, Vrel said. Though I should mention, understanding them might not help. Dr. Quilnix has been studying human behavior for 3 weeks now. Doctor, how's that going? Dr. Quilnix, who'd once published a paper titled Universal Patterns in Sentient Fear Response, looked at the council with haunted eyes. The more I learn, the less sense they make. Yesterday I watched a human video of people voluntarily throwing themselves out of aircraft for fun. They call it skydiving. For fun. Recommendation accepted, Chancellor Mipthar repeated, sounding tired. Vrel, you're now head of the Human Integration Initiative. Try not to let them corrupt our entire understanding of psychology. I'll do my best, Vrel said, though privately he suspected that ship had already sailed, crashed, and been turned into a human amusement park ride. The council adjourned. As representatives filed out, Vrel heard fragments of conversation. Most involved. Variations of, what have we gotten ourselves into? And maybe we should have stayed in our own sector. Dr. Quilnix approached him as the chamber emptied. Do you really think cooperation is the answer? I think it's the only answer, Vrel replied. Because the alternative is trying to compete with or oppose beings who see challenges as entertainment and danger as Tuesday. I ran the simulations. Quilnix. Every scenario where we treat humans as adversaries ends badly. For us, even with our superior technology, especially with our superior technology, because humans will study it, reverse engineer it, improve it, and probably turn it into a sport. Give them a doomsday weapon, and they'll figure out how to play games with it. Dr. Quilnix sighed. I miss the days when xenopsychology made sense. We all do. Vrel agreed. We all do. 3 months later, Commander Vrel was back on Station Omega-7, but this time for a very different purpose. The Galactic Council had approved the first official human galactic cultural exchange program, and the first group of human visitors was arriving today. Vrel checked his notes nervously. 20 humans, ranging from age 8 to 62, representing various Earth cultures and professions. Teachers, scientists, artists, a plumber, 2 students. And, because the universe had a sense of humor, 1 kindergarten class that specifically requested Tommy Rexford's inclusion after hearing about his experience. They're docking now, announced Brohl, who'd been reassigned to the program with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for tax audits. The airlock opened. Out stepped the human delegation, and Vrel experienced something he hadn't felt in years: genuine uncertainty about how to proceed. They looked so normal. Small by galactic standards, soft by predator standards, relatively fragile by objective standards. If you didn't know better, you'd think they were harmless. Then Tommy spotted him and waved enthusiastically. "Commander Vrel. Hi. I brought my whole class. Can we see Bartholomew?" "The honey badger is in secure containment," Vrel said carefully. "For everyone's safety." "Whose safety?" asked one of Tommy's classmates, a girl named Sophie, who'd apparently inherited humanity's trademark lack of survival instinct. "Ours or yours?" Before Vrel could answer, one of the adult humans, Jake Thornton of Phase 5 dancing fame, stepped forward with a smile. "Commander, thank you for having us. My students are very excited. They have so many questions." "Questions are welcome," Vrel said, activating his translator to broadcast to the group. "Welcome to Station Omega 7. We've prepared a comprehensive orientation program to help you understand galactic society and protocols." "Cool," said Tommy. "Does it have more scary stuff?" Vrel felt his migraine returning. "The orientation is designed to be informative and safe." The disappointed awe from 20 humans echoed through the docking bay. Dr. Quilnix appeared, carrying data tablets. "Welcome, everyone. I'm Dr. Quilnix, xenobiologist. I'll be coordinating your cultural studies. We have a full schedule planned: station tours, introduction to various species customs, communication workshops, and— "Can we meet more aliens?" interrupted Sophie. "Are there other scary animals? Do you have space monsters? Can we go to the place with weird gravity?" Dr. Quilnix looked at Vrel. Vrel looked at Brol. Brol's tentacles had curled into what was unmistakably the gesture for "I told you so." "Perhaps," Vrel suggested, "we should start with basic safety protocols." "Safety protocols are boring," stated a third human child, Marcus, with absolute confidence. "We had to do those before we came. We know not to push the red buttons or touch things that are glowing weirdly, or wander off without permission. Though we might wander off with permission," Tommy added helpfully. "That's different." Jake Thornton had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "Kids, remember what we discussed about making good first impressions?" "Right." Tommy straightened up, affecting something resembling professional behavior. "We promise to follow all your rules and not cause any incidents that require paperwork." "That's oddly specific," Vrel noted. "Our principal made us practice that part a lot," Sophie explained. Over the following weeks, the cultural exchange program unfolded in ways that nobody had predicted. The humans were curious about everything, fearless in their exploration, and somehow managed to make friends with species that had specifically requested to not interact with them. The Skraeth ambassador, still embarrassed about the Bartholomew incident, had demanded minimal human contact. Within 3 days, Tommy and his classmates had won over the ambassador's aide by teaching them Earth games. Within a week, the ambassador himself was attending what humans called game night, and had developed an inexplicable fondness for something called Go Fish. The Brevari, who'd conquered fear through genetic modification, found themselves fascinated by human horror entertainment. A cultural exchange screening of human scary movies had resulted in the entire Brevari delegation taking extensive notes and asking if they could commission more. "You intentionally create fiction designed to frighten yourselves?" asked Ambassador Brevix, watching a movie about sharks with the kind of intense focus usually reserved for military strategy sessions. "Why?" "Because it's fun." Emma Park, the Special Forces volunteer who'd become a program coordinator, explained. "Plus, it helps us deal with real fears. If we can laugh at monster movies, regular problems seem less scary. You weaponize your entertainment against your own psychological responses," Ambassador Brevik said slowly. "That's brilliant. Insane, but brilliant." The low point, or high point depending on perspective, came when Sophie convinced station security to let her and her classmates participate in a training exercise. The exercise was designed to teach junior officers how to respond to hostile encounters. The children were supposed to play the victims who needed rescuing. Instead, they'd somehow taken control of the scenario, convinced the hostile forces to switch sides using what Jake described as aggressive friendship tactics, and ended the exercise by organizing an impromptu peace negotiation that resulted in everyone sharing snacks. The security chief's report simply read, "Humans have bypassed our training protocols through unconventional social engineering. Recommend we revise everything." Vrel found Jake Thornton later that day. "Your students just convinced trained soldiers to abandon a tactical exercise in favor of what I believe you call juice boxes and cookies." "Yeah," Jake said, not sounding remotely apologetic. "They're good at that. It's why I teach kindergarten. Regular humans are impressive, but 5-year-olds are 5, terrifying in their ability to reshape reality through sheer force of personality. That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be. It's a warning." Jake smiled. "Those kids will be adults in 15 years. Then they'll be in charge of things. The galaxy should probably prepare." Vrel's migraine had achieved permanent residency status. The final week of the exchange program brought the moment Vrel had been avoiding. The humans wanted to say goodbye to Bartholomew. The honey badger had been kept in comfortable but secure containment, fed well, and given enrichment activities. But Tommy had asked repeatedly to see his friend, and the council had reluctantly agreed to allow a supervised visit. Vrel, Dr. Quilnix, and every available security officer gathered outside the containment area as Tommy and his classmates were escorted in. Bartholomew, upon seeing Tommy, made a sound that Vrel's translator rendered as enthusiastic recognition followed by mild disappointment that there's nothing to fight. Tommy approached the enclosure carefully, respectfully. "Hey, Bartholomew. Remember me?" The honey badger waddled to the barrier, studying the boy with those dark eyes that suggested vast reserves of fearless determination. Then, to everyone's shock, it pressed against the transparent wall, the closest approximation to affection its species could probably manage. "He remembers," Sophie whispered. "That's so cool. Can we let him out?" Marcus asked. "Just for a minute?" "Absolutely not," Vrel said firmly. "That creature represents a clear danger to station safety." Bartholomew, as if understanding and taking offense, made a sound that definitely translated as, "I represent danger? Look who's talking, Four Eyes." "He's not dangerous if you respect him," Tommy said. "That's what my dad taught me about wild animals. They're not mean. They're just honest about their boundaries." Dr. Quilnix was taking notes furiously. "The human child has formed an emotional bond with a creature that every threat assessment algorithm classifies as a hostile entity." "Or," suggested Emma Park, who'd been observing quietly, "your threat assessment algorithms don't account for mutual respect and appropriate boundaries." Bartholomew didn't attack Tommy because Tommy wasn't a threat to him. He attacked the Skraeth because it was being aggressive towards something he'd decided to protect. "The honey badger chose sides," Vrel said slowly, understanding dawning. "It wasn't defending itself. It was defending Tommy." "Earth animals do that," Emma confirmed. "We've co-evolved with them. Mutual protection, mutual benefit. Humans and dogs. Humans and horses. Humans and cats. Though cats are more like roommates who occasionally tolerate us. It's not about dominance. It's about partnership." The week ended with a ceremony that became legendary in galactic history. The humans presented gifts to their hosts. Books, music, art, and what Tommy called the really important stuff, which turned out to be a collection of Earth snacks and 3 movies about space adventures that portrayed aliens as friends instead of threats. In return, the Galactic Council presented humanity with something unprecedented, an open invitation to join galactic society as full members, bypassing the usual centuries-long probationary period. Chancellor Mipthar made the announcement personally. "Humanity, you have shown us that fear is not the universal constant we believed it to be. You face the unknown with curiosity instead of terror. You build bridges instead of walls. You turn enemies into friends through sheer stubborn optimism, and what I can only describe as weaponized friendliness. The galaxy will be better, if significantly more chaotic, with you in it." Tommy raised his hand. Does this mean we can visit whenever we want? Within reason, Chancellor Mipthar said carefully. Can we bring more friends? Please define friends. People, animals, maybe some plants. My teacher has a really cool cactus. The Chancellor's breathing apparatus wheezed. We'll establish guidelines. As the human delegation prepared to depart, Vrel found himself standing next to Jake Thornton, watching the children say goodbye to various station personnel they'd befriended. You know what's funny? Jake said. Everyone keeps acting like humans are so unusual. But from our perspective, you're all the weird ones. A whole galaxy full of species that let fear run their lives? That's strange to us. We have fears, but we don't let them make our decisions. How? Vrel asked, genuinely curious. How do you overcome something so fundamental? Jake considered the question. We don't overcome it. We live with it. Fear tells us about danger, but courage tells us about possibility. We listen to both, then we choose possibility. Because what's the alternative? Miss out on everything interesting because it might be scary? That's no way to live. Your species is going to change everything, Vrel said. You know that, right? We usually do, Jake agreed. But hey, you guys survived first contact with us. That counts for something. Most of you only questioned your career choices a little bit. I'm questioning them a lot. That means you're growing. Jake grinned. Welcome to the human experience, Commander. It's terrifying and wonderful, usually at the same time. As the human ship departed, Vrel stood at the observation window with Dr. Quilnix. Below, in his containment area, Bartholomew the honey badger was eating his dinner with the casual confidence of a creature that had stared down the galaxy and found it wanting. What do you think happens next? Dr. Quilnix asked. Honestly, I have no idea, Vrel admitted. But I suspect it will be interesting. That's one word for it. They stood in comfortable silence watching the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity was heading home, already planning their next visit, already thinking about what other impossible things they could accomplish. The galaxy had spent 300 years trying to figure out how to scare humans. Now it had a new challenge, figuring out how to keep up with them. Vrel suspected it was going to be the adventure of a lifetime. Probably terrifying, definitely worth it. Behind him, a message notification chimed. He pulled it up and read, Hey Commander Vrel, Tommy here. Mom helped me write this. Thank you for the best field trip ever. My class wants to know if we can come back next year. Also, can we bring Bartholomew home? We promise to take good care of him. Let me know. P.S. Your station is really cool, but you should get better snacks. Vrel closed the message and looked at Dr. Quilnix. They want to bring the honey badger to Earth. Of course they do, she replied. Why would they not want to do that? I need a vacation. You need therapy, Dr. Quilnix corrected. We all do. Human-induced existential crisis should be a recognized medical condition. But despite everything, despite the stress and the confusion and the complete revision of 3 centuries of xenopsychological theory, Vrel found himself smiling. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy, ready or not, was never going to be the same.